Alright, here we are back on the SR71 again. I'm going to go ahead and use yardsticks from the center keel all the way back to the tail section. What I've done is I've tapered the front of the nose piece keel stiffener so that I can accommodate as much of the nose as possible for strength, so I don't get any flutter out of it, although I don't think I would anyways, but just for the strength factor, in case I do put landing gear or in case it goes fast enough to where flutter is a concern. So I'm going to go ahead and glue those on there, and I just started it back from the nose tip. Just kind of estimated the gap. It's flat here. It's flat right here up until about 1.5 inches, 2 inches, and then the rest of it is pretty shallow. That's why I did the taper. So we're going to go ahead and put that on. I put marks on there for the thickness of the yardstick, and we're going to go ahead and epoxy that on. But before I epoxy it this time, I'm going to go ahead and sand it up a little bit. Just a real light sanding to take the shine off of it to get a better bond. I might add too, on the tail section of the SR71, we want to do the same thing because we have basically the same shape on the back side. Here's the back side here, and we want the taper so that it'll cover it up and be hidden. Alright, here's the nose of the SR71, and like I say, I tapered that yardstick, and I glued it all the way to the 36 inches. That's what they come. And then there's a gap, and then I glued the other yardstick to the back and have the same arc for clearance on the back. I might have to trim it, but nevertheless. And then in the gap here, I've got a gap, but that worked out pretty good because now I'm going to double it, and I used 10-inch doublers. One would probably be efficient, but I'm going to go ahead and use 2. This is probably the weakest point of the whole construction, so it's a big benefit, I think. So I'm just going to double it up. I'm using the fabric tack. Fabric tack works pretty good. It's Beacon adhesives. I put the glue on the yardstick. A nice bead. I lay it down. I push down on it so that it gets a nice firm bond. Tilt it, lift it up, let it air out a couple of times, stick it back on. If it's pretty loose, lift it up, let it air out again. It only takes about a minute, minute and a half. And when you finally stick it back down, it's not going to want to come loose. So just push down tight, nice and firm, so that it gets a good bond with the other part. And I go ahead, and as I'm working, I just go back and make sure that it's down tight. And you'll see that it's tight. It's workable. It'll probably be dry a couple of hours, but at this point I'm going to stick these on with the same material, fabric tack, and on the little bit of glue here, a little bit of glue here, bond it together, and then I can continue on and maybe even put on the canopy nacelle. Alright, you want to put glue, I'm putting the midsection on first. Put glue around the edges using the fabric tack. And lay it in there where you want it. On your line. And peel it off. Let it air out for a few seconds. Maybe 30 seconds. Stick it back on, but make sure you catch your lines because that's a lot of surface to be pulling apart. And in this case, I'm just using an eyeball. Using my eyeball for the fit. Alright, now for my engine nacelles right here. There's 24 inches before it tapers. The back tapers, and approximately 3 inches tapers to the back exhaust, and then approximately 4.5 inches from the front of the engine pod tapers. So there's 2 foot that is straight back. It's just a straight 5-inch tube. So what I'm taking is the foam board from the dollar store, and I'm taking off one side with alcohol, rubbing alcohol. Kind of splash it around, rub it in, and it'll start loosening up, and just slowly peel it till you peel the whole thing off. Keep putting alcohol on it. And where you're still peeling it, make sure it's wet from alcohol, and it'll come off. So I'm taking a 24-inch slab. It needs to be 15 inches to make a 5-inch diameter, but I'm leaving it 20 right now so that I can roll it, and come up with this. After it's rolled, I take the other side of the paper off and roll it some more, and then join the ends. So I've got a 2 foot 5-inch tube, approximately 5 inch, doesn't have to be exactly. Peel slowly. If it needs alcohol on any of the dry spots, just sprinkle a little bit. Like right here, I've got a little tear. Just sprinkle a little bit more, and it'll peel back. 15 inches from end to end, 24 wide or deep, and hit it with some fabric tack. And start putting it together. Alright, about 11.5 inches from the tail end of the fuselage to 11.5 inches, like I say. Cut a groove for about a 3/16 carbon rod, and it should be plenty. It still covers the 3/4 of the elevator area, surface area, so that it shouldn't flutter. But that should be plenty of strength. I was going to go bigger, but I feel more comfortable with the smaller one because there's plenty of strength there on that sheet. Alright, now the tubes that I made, I split them in half with the 5-inch tubes. I split them in half so that I could put one on top, one on the bottom. It's like I've done here. Put the bead of glue, put 2 beads of glue, start with one side, stick it, undo it, stick it, undo it, stick it, and then start sticking the other side. And just kind of roll it so that it kind of makes a full clean circle radius. And the front part we'll have to make it, back part we'll make it, because they taper, they're smaller. Alright, we cut out the rudders. There's a little notch that goes in here, but I just wanted to make it straight for strength. So we've got the vertical fins. I'm not going to put any rudder control on it, just run elevons. And the rudders themselves, so the vertical fins, go flush with the exhaust of the simulated jet engine. Cut a bevel on the bottom, 70 degrees, thanks to Falcon RC. He gave me the idea to where the dimensions 70 degrees from his SR71, and cut a slot into the nacelle, and 70 degrees on the bottom flush, 70 degrees on the pitch of the rudders. It might be a little extreme, but that's what I'm going to put in it. Make it flush in the back and glue them in. Alright, cut out the bottom fuselage section of the undercarriage. Got 2 pieces for the rear, 2 pieces going to the front, tapered. Going to stick them together with the, we're using the, for the assembly, black duct tape. Once I put them together, then I'll relieve the center and then fold it in to get that that diamond shape. And it doesn't, on the bottom, it doesn't matter how small it is. I'm going to make it go as close to the edges as possible. Alright, here we got these little fan jets. Supposed to be I think over a pound of thrust, and we're going to try, I'm going to try to make these fit into the nacelle, and I'm going to block it, build up some foam, make the nose of the engine pod out of foam, and then try to set this in there so that it locks itself in, and we'll see what happens. Alright, I've taken a scroll saw. I put my blocks of foam, it's 1.5 inches, 2-inch foam, 2-inch block of foam. Put it on here. I trace the radius of the nacelle. Cut it out on the bandsaw. And then I've taken and cut a ridge, a shoulder, so that this will go underneath the nacelle, just like so. And once these are all glued together, oh, I also at the same time centered them, marked them, and cut out for the fan, so that the fan will just slide right in there and cradle it. I might have to, because I didn't accommodate for the thickness of the wing, I might have to add some fillers in there, which is no big deal. At least I've got the radius already cut. So there you go. Glue all these pieces together. The one that goes in the front here, and then I've got the second one match up to it, the third one to match up to it. I'm going to epoxy it, and then I've got the cradle for the engine, or for the ducted fan. And what I'm going to do is just press it into the, and make a groove for the shoulder. It's got a little shoulder here. I'm just going to press it into it so that it makes its own, catches its own unit. I also marked about a 1/2 inch ridge around the edge here, so that I don't put any epoxy on the outside edge, just on the inside to hold it all together, because I still have to shape this. I have to curve it down so that it fits the tip of the engine, or the engine nacelle, because it does taper, and I'll do the same thing with the back, but the back is not so critical.